Well, good day, my beautiful stars. I hope you are all doing well. Welcome back to the podcast series about organized religion and division. We are now sitting on episode 1, part 3B. If you haven't seen any of the others, please feel free to go and have a look at episode 1, part 1, right through to 3B. Let's get into today's reading, and if you don't mind, do like, share, comment, and hit that notification bell. I will see you in 2 seconds. Part 3B. The lantern never went out. As the hermit continues his journey, something extraordinary begins to emerge. The search for direct experience of the divine was never confined to one religion, nor was it limited to one culture. Across continents, across centuries, and across languages, men and women stepped away from the noise of the crowd to seek something deeper. Not a new religion, not another institution, but a living encounter with the sacred. Although their paths looked different, they often ask remarkably similar questions. How do I know what is true? How do I overcome fear? How do I become more compassionate? How do I draw closer to the divine? History suggests that these questions belong to humanity itself. With Judaism, generations of mystics sought to understand not only the written words of Scripture, but the deeper reality they believed lay beneath them. Prayer became more than obligation. It became transformation. Silence became a teacher. The heart became a place of encounter. Centuries later, traditions that would become known collectively as Kabbalah explored the relationship between humanity and the infinite, searching for meaning beneath the surface of the sacred text. Not every Jewish community embraced these mystical traditions, yet they endured quietly, patiently, like the hermit's lantern. Then, within Islam, another current emerged. Today, many people know it as Sufism. While Islam's civilization produced extraordinary scholars, jurists, theologians, Sufi teachers reminded their students that knowledge alone could never replace a transformed heart. And please note, these days, there is a further offspring of that with the extremist Islam. Let's pause that for a second. We'll get to that. They spoke of polishing the mirror of the soul until it reflected the divine more clearly. Poets such as Jalal al-Din Rumi wrote of love, humility, and surrender in a language that continues to inspire millions of people, regardless of their religious backgrounds. Again, this was not a separate religion. It was a mystical stream within Islam itself. A reminder that every tradition contains voices calling people beyond outward conformity towards inner transformation, looking inwards. Across India, we've got the Hindu traditions, and that developed countless paths toward spiritual awakening. Some emphasize emphasizes, my tongue, sorry guys, some emphasizes devotion, others meditation, others selfless action, others deep philosophical inquiry. Despite the differences, many ask a question that echoes across the ages, and that is, what is the relationship between the individual self and the ultimate reality? Different schools answered that question differently, yet the search itself remained constant. The journey inward became just as important as the rituals performed outwardly. Then in Buddhism, the focus shifted again. Rather than asking how to know God, Buddhist tradition often asked how human beings became trapped by suffering. How does attachment shape our lives? How does anger cloud our perception? How does compassion free both ourselves and others? While Buddhism differs significantly from the Abrahamic faiths in its theology, its contemplative traditions allows and it also invites practitioners into careful self-examination. Once again, the outer journey becomes the inner one. These traditions are not identical. They should never be reduced to saying exactly the same thing. Each possesses its own history, its own beliefs, practices, and understanding of ultimate reality. Respecting those differences matter, but acknowledging differences does not prevent us from recognizing patterns. Across history, many spiritual traditions have balanced two important dimensions. The first is community, shared worship, shared identity, shared teaching. The second is personal transformation, the quiet work that no institution can do on behalf of another human being. It is that quiet time in your inner sanctum. Healthy spiritual communities have often sought to hold these dimensions together. History also shows that maintaining this balance is never ever easy. This, my stars, is where the Hermit's lantern illuminates something unexpected. The tension between institution and personal experience is not unique to just Christianity. It appears throughout human history. Sometimes institutions nurture mystical traditions. Sometimes they become cautious of them. Sometimes they embrace them. Sometimes they resist them. The reason varies from person to person, from institution to institution. Each tradition has its own story, but the pattern is familiar. Whenever spiritual experience challenges established authority, difficult conversations often follow. Sometimes those conversations produce renewal. Sometimes they produce conflict. Sometimes they produce both. There's another lesson history quietly whispers. The people who changed the world were not always those who held highest office. Many began in obscurity. A monk in a cell, a rabbi in conversation, a wandering teacher, a poet, a mystic, a woman praying in silence, a shepherd contemplating the stars. Transformation often begins at the edges before it reaches the center. Perhaps that is why the hermit walks alone. Not because he believes he is better than others, but because every human being must eventually undertake certain parts of their journey for themselves. No emperor can walk it. No priest can walk it. No teacher can walk it. Guides can point the way. Communities can offer support. Traditions can preserve wisdom. But no one can experience truth on another person's behalf. So as we prepare to leave the hermit behind, we will also prepare to widen our investigation. Until now, our story has largely allowed the emergence of Christianity within the Roman world. That was our starting point, not our destination. In the chapters ahead, we will discover that the relationship between organized religion and power is not the story of one civilization. It is a recurring human story. We will travel beyond Rome, beyond Europe, beyond one tradition. We will explore moments when religious identity inspired extraordinary courage and compassion. We will also examine moments when religious identity became intertwined with nationalism, empire, ideology, politics, war, fear-mongering, division. We're not condemning faith, not to elevate one religion above the other, but to ask an honest question. What happens when the sacred becomes inseparable from political power? What happens when the sacred becomes inseparable from political powers? And just as importantly, what happens when ordinary people forget that every great tradition also contains voices calling them back to humility, compassion, and self-examination? The hermit's light and lantern grows dim as dawn begins to break. His work is complete. It has not given us every answer. It was never meant to give us all the answers. Instead, it has taught us something far more valuable. The courage to keep asking, the courage to keep listening, and the wisdom to recognize that the search for truth is not owned by any one institution, not by one nation, nor any one people, nor any one organized religion. It is part of the shared inheritance of humanity. As we step into the next chapter of this series, we will leave the quiet path of the hermit and return to the great stage of history. There we will discover how faith, identity, and power have shaped kingdoms, inspired revolutions, united communities, divided nations, started wars. The patterns are ancient, but their echoes are still with us today. And this, my friends, I will leave you now until we see you in the next installment, when we will start with episode 2, Until I speak to you soon, I hope you guys enjoyed it. So please like, share, comment, and I look forward to hearing from you. Until I speak to you all soon, have a lovely day.